Oregon went into Northwestern and won 34-14.
They did.
I had a unnamed person text me at the half, the notes gif of the guy from The Office and Oregon. I think it was 10-0 at this point, and I just went, yeah, they're not playing great. They're going to win by 20 or 30.
Yeah. It was 17-0 at the half.
I don't think it was ever. I don't think even after the first quarter, when what was it, 3-0 at the end of the first quarter? 7-0?
I think it was 7-0. They scored a touchdown right at the end of the first quarter, and then that was the stretch where they went touchdown, commercial, kickoff, commercial, 3-and-out Northwestern, commercial, one play Oregon, end of the first quarter, commercial.
I don't think it was
7-0 at the end of the first.
Ever in doubt, but I did text you guys, and I text a few other people this. This is going to sound honkish, and I understand that it might sound that way.
You're such a duck honk.
Yeah, you know me. I actually think it was the best possible thing that could have happened for Oregon, and to our open point, maybe the worst possible thing that could have happened for Oregon State.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're not. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation about this weekend. And I would not want to be in the shoes of Oregon State this week because I imagine that Dan Lanning is relishing the opportunity for the first time this season to light into his team for a substandard to his view performance. The funny thing about it is it was a sluggish game. It wasn't
still
a blowout.
34-0.
It was 34
when
minutes.
he pulled the starter.
It was 34-0 with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Northwestern scored with basically 5 minutes left in the fourth to make it 34-7, and then they had that long touchdown run at the end of the game that made it 34-14. So they almost still covered the spread despite being a substandard performance in their view. The funny thing is, though, like it was, and Lanning talked about it after the game, the lack of possessions. It's almost just like playing nerds. They want to play you this way, and that's what Northwestern did. I felt like I was playing Purple Stanford at times. Oregon, like we would think, hey, why didn't they fire on all cylinders? You know what their drive chart was? So opening drive, they didn't score. They went 7 plays, a little sluggish, sleepy to start the game, punted it to Northwestern. You know how their next handful of drives went? Next time they got it, touchdown, 3-and-out, touchdown, punt for Northwestern, touchdown, end of the first half. Turnover on downs, touchdown, interception, touchdown. Like they scored on every possession after the opening possession to build their way up to a 31 and then eventually 34-0 lead.
So when he threw the pick, what was the score at that point?
It was 31-0 when he threw the pick, and that was one where I think when you watch the special teams throughout the day, that was into a about 25-mile-an-hour window, and you could tell that the ball just completely died on him.
He said that in the he got interviewed on the Big Noon broadcast after the game, and he basically said he thought DeCorian was open. I just thought that was a bad read. I give you the win, but I also don't think that's a throw that Lanning wants. I bet you in film they say, let's stay away from that one.
It's 31-0. Why are we throwing this? I think it was on an early down too, and they were at midfield with a chance to go up 38-0, and then you feel differently. So
I think in those kind of games, Dirt, these are the games that everybody confidently says, they're going to win this game 50-3, right? And it ends up being 34-14, so it's a slightly different result than you're expecting. But you still watch it and you go, okay, Northwestern can't throw the football. All they're doing is running the football. You can certainly say out loud, should we worry about that duck run defense again? Fine. If you want to do that, I'm sure that's what Lanning and Taj Lapoy are doing. I don't even think it's about the score and time. I just think that's a throw that Will Stein's going to say, we got to cut that one out. You do that at Penn State, that could cost you a game. Right? That's the one I think they would point to. There are little moments in this game that they're going to use for film and say, let's clean these areas up, or let's learn from that and try to tell ourselves not to do that again.
Well, and coaches love opportunities to be hard on their team and to coach them hard. And how do you coach a team hard when they win 69-3?
Right.
Like, you're not going to yell in film session because guys are just going to roll their eyes of like, there's little standards here, or maybe this play could have been a little more effort, or we didn't execute this or that. We need to work on that in practice.
Penalties were one, right?
Penalties was one.
And
they had 0 penalties.
Yeah.
That was the first time there was a stat that was out there floating around this weekend, first time in forever that they haven't had a game with a penalty. They should have had multiple, but that's the way most football games go. Sometimes you get the whistle, sometimes you don't. The funny thing is like one of the biggest positive takeaways for me, honestly, and it was almost like people focused on the interception because it was the first one he threw. It's the first one he's thrown in an Oregon uniform. The biggest takeaway for me, honestly, was it was really nice to see Dante operate in moments that were never fully uncomfortable, but slightly uncomfortable. Like that game at the end of the first half, Oregon got the ball back. They were up 10-0. It was only their 4th possession of the game. There was 3 minutes to go in the first half, and they had a 3rd and long inside their own 15-yard line. You don't pick that first down up, you're punting the ball back. Northwestern probably gets it around midfield because you're punting from your own end zone, and then they get the ball to start the second half coming out of the gate. And so like that's one of those swing moments where it's like this game could go one way or it could go the other way. And on 3rd and long, he was calm, cool, and collected in the pocket, made a great throw to DeCorian Moore over the middle, And then that kind of kickstarted that final drive to essentially put the game away going into the locker room to make it 17-0 because Northwestern wasn't going to score 20 on you.
You didn't think they were going to come back.
So at 17-0, you know the game is over. And I thought there were multiple times on that drive. I want to say he converted multiple third and long situations, and the touchdown pass to Kenyon Sadiq was a thing of beauty. So I think the coaching staff got exactly what they wanted out of this. They got a game where they can light into their team with Penn State being 2 weeks away. They got an opportunity to go on the road and play in front of a high school stadium and just kind of learn how your team's going to handle a situation like that. And also you got to have your guys play some snaps that were, again, not fully uncomfortable of like, oh, God, if I don't make this play, we're going to lose the game. But it's just a different operating system when you score 2 touchdowns on your first 3 plays and the game is essentially over, which is what happened last week against Oklahoma State. That wasn't the case. You had to battle this one out a little bit, and it was over at halftime. But there was still at least that uneasy feeling that they had to fight through, and it was nice to see them perform in those situations.
Yeah, Hill had the one really long run. He ran for 66, got the tutty. Jaden Lamar, it just continues to impress me.
Mm-hmm. They struggled to run the ball a little bit early in the game, and then they found some things in the second half. That D.R. Hill run was a thing of beauty.
That one popped for him. That was great. I guess I would just ask you, though, because it's hard, I think, when you play such a lesser opponent, and it gets ugly, and there's wind, and you're not perfect, and you win by 20, but people are expecting you to win, I guess, by 30. It seems ridiculous to even be asking this, but I'll ask it nonetheless because it's going to be a big talking point going into Penn State because we know they're going to obliterate Oregon State this weekend.
Yeah, probably.
The rush defense. Mm-hmm. And now, look, some of this is that long run at the very end of the game kind of boosts the stats a little bit.
They had a 79-yard touchdown run at the end of the game.
Which essentially was almost the last play of the game.
Yes.
It feels weird, I guess, to ask this, but giving up, I guess, prior to that, 100 yards on the ground, just your overall thoughts of just the rush defense and how it looked, given I didn't think Northwestern showed any ability to move the football through the air, and it was like, well, we're going to run the football, and that's kind of about it.
Preston Stone's really bad.
I just think the entire team is really bad. Yeah. I think their air attack is really bad. Their 4th down attempt late, which I didn't blame him for going for deep in his own territory, is like the most obvious run call ever, and guess what happened?
And they had a 4th down call where a guy dropped a pass after deciding to throw for it on 3rd and short and getting sacked.
I think, and we got landing audio we'll get to, but yeah, this is what these coaches look for at these programs, right? The Ohio States, the Oregons, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the whoever's of that tier of college football. Mm-hmm. This is what they look for, is every little thing. Last week it was penalties, right? They won 69-3. What happened this week? 0 penalties. But then they followed up, and the offense has clunky moments, even though they haven't had many possessions, and the defense gives up some runs. Where the rush defense and I guess the concern going into Penn State in 2 weeks, because again, this game this weekend will not be close.
It's hard to get a read on it. I think to be concerned is pretty laughable, just like it would be laughable to watch them beat Oklahoma State 69-3 and say they're going to win a national championship. Like there's not a direct correlation there. It's great.
There was some of that noise though after that game.
Of course there was. There was a lot of rat poison out there this week, man, and that's a part of this equation for me and how I view the game. It's a multi-part thing where I do think in hindsight, now that I've seen the stadium and watched an entire game in a high school stadium, it's an embarrassing thing that a Big Ten team is playing in that setting. Just play all your games at Wrigley. What are we doing? Work the schedule around the Cubs. Or go play at Soldier Field. The Bears were on the road. Like, there are options there that you can go play in. Teams have done this before.
I don't think the Bears want to lend out that field, and I also think that field sucks.
It's not great.
That might have got somebody hurt on that field.
It's not great, but the combination of the 9 a.m. start time, there being no juice inside the stadium, and the big noon kickoff shoving a 7-minute commercial down our throat every 90 seconds.
Good Lord.
I think it all kind of coincides for me, right? So, like, no, it's not encouraging to see them have a back who averages almost 5 yards a carry. But also when you look at the totals for the game, if you take out one 79-yard run at the end when Oregon clearly stopped playing with 2 minutes to go or a minute to go or however much time was left when they scored, it was essentially 36 carries for 100 yards. Now, some of that is equated with Preston Stone's sack numbers. You take that out, it was like 30 carries for 110 yards as a team. So it's not ideal. It's not perfect. It's not number one rush defense in the country level, but it's also not as bad as it necessarily felt. And I also give some credit to Northwestern. Like, that was a big moment for them, and I know we can laugh at that because they didn't have a chance in hell to win. How often does Northwestern play on a big noon kickoff? How often do they get a college football pregame show on their campus of one of the two major networks? Like, they came out, they were fired up at the start. They had that first drive where they ate up like half of the first quarter right out of the gate and then couldn't turn it into points. They throw a pick, and Oregon was off and running from there. It is a good feeling to have a team where you're up 34-0 with 5 minutes to go and everybody's asking what's wrong. Like, look around college football. It's another thing I'll tie in today. Did anybody watch Ohio State, Ohio this weekend?
I didn't watch it, but I was
See
following
that score?
it. Yeah, that was kind of like, what's going on here?
Does anybody watch Texas and Arch Manning, who looks literally broken? Like, we're going to dive into that? Or are we going to dive into Penn State being up 10-0 at the end of the first half, essentially, against Villanova at home?
Back-to-back weeks.
Back-to-back weeks where they're like, what are we doing here? And they're not. So,
but conversely, Georgia at Tennessee.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there were great games and there were great wins. I'm not saying that. Georgia also a week ago beat Austin P 28-7 at home.
Yeah.
And only scored 7 points
LSU,
per quarter.
23-7 against La Tech.
You're just kind of fitting into the mold of everybody in college football. Can you hit on all cylinders when it's needed? That's the biggest question that remains. But just like 69-3 last week doesn't make me say this team will never lose a game. I'm not going to look at a game where you give up some rushing yards for the first time and say, now I'm very concerned about the run defense.